Where is your awareness of what you do? But we can talk about the oil rags of this tyranny. We must never forget the engineers, because, like I say, these people, even Schwab and Gates, higher up the hierarchy as they may be, are still gophers for a force, a network that spans the world and works through apparently individual governments to the same sinister, satanic end, and places like this is where they operate from. The plan is this, which is why we must, yes, focus on the gophers and the oil rags for their part in this, but we must not lose sight of where it's coming from, because the plan is to create the unfolding catastrophe for humanity that's happening all over the world. And this winter we've seen nothing yet with the energy prices, where people on fixed incomes and no incomes will have to choose between food and warmth. I wonder if Charlie Boy will be doing that. So the idea, as it started with lockdown and continues now with the destruction of the economy through the massive increases in energy and fuel, the idea is for people in individual countries, quote, to blame their governments and their cult gophers in government for everything. Because the idea then is, having dismantled our lives and our ability to put food on the table and warmth in our homes, that the other level of the cult, via its corporations, its banks, yes, and its politicians, political people who are controlled by them, to come forward and say, look at the mess that governments have made of your lives. But we are now going to step forward, we, the corporations, the banks, the billionaires of the cult, to save you from what your governments have imposed upon you. When those same people from the background have been orchestrating the catastrophe via those governments and gophers in government. It is a mind trick that they are seeking to play. It's in their bloody documents, and we mustn't buy it. We must see the gophers' responsibility, but we must also see where it is coming from. And so yes, they must face the consequences, but we must understand the game that is playing us and cease to take part. And there's another mind trick that we must always be aware of, and that is that we are manipulated in our anger, in our fury at what is being done, to become what we oppose. What we fight, we become. The world over, the history over, you see the evidence constantly of people challenging tyranny and then becoming the architects of tyranny by succumbing to the same mentality, the same methodology of those they oppose. We have to go in another direction. You do not eliminate the low ground by fighting on it. You eliminate the low ground by ceasing to cooperate with it. building something better and refusing to cooperate with anything else. Because the most powerful word in the English language or any other language is and has always been. It is the word that has ended every tyranny in history, and ultimately it will end this one. And that word, of course, is no, no, no! It is to understand, as we stand, nearly 8 billion people being manipulated and imposed upon by a tiny few. We need to understand where the real power is, and it's not with satanic forces that operate out of places like the City of London. Our perception that they have power is a misunderstanding of where the power is. Their power, the power of the few, is simply the acquiescence to their diktats by the many. How can 8 billion people be controlled by a handful unless those 8 billion, or most of them, give their power to the handful? This has to end, and when it ends, this tyranny will end. People keep saying, what's the solution? Get yourself a calculator, put in 8 billion, take away the number in full knowledge who are imposing this, and there's your bloody solution. And what it takes is just that stiffened backbone, that courage to stand up to what is a house of cards, if only we would stop holding it together. Let's look our children and grandchildren in the eye and tell them that we're too frightened to stand up to this tyranny. Tell them that we can't be bothered to research what's actually going on, and instead sit there getting our perceptions from the BBC and the Daily Bloody Mail. This is the time for humanity to take responsibility for its world, to stop pointing the finger and saying it's them. No, it's us. It's always been us. It's always been us throughout known human history who have handed our power to the few, which is why throughout human history the few have always controlled the many. Enough! No more! The mantra of the people, as others gather in their millions to worship their oppression, let the mantra of the awake people, those that can see and their number is growing all the time, be no, no, no. We will no longer acquiesce and cooperate with our own enslavement, because when we stop doing so, we cannot be enslaved. This is the time to change human history by changing the public population response that has created human history. 8 billion, wake up! Wake up! And when we do, this tyranny not only will be over, it will be impossible for it to maintain its power, because its power is our power. We give it to them. It's time, my God, it's long past the time to take it back. Thank you very much.